So hello everybody, my name is Joachim, I'm from Germany, as Paul already told you. I've been a Fulldome producer and 3D animator for, I think now it's a better part of my life. I've been 15 years old or something. In 2009 I founded my own company called Northdocks, and since then we produced, I think we produced 5 Fulldome shows and a couple of parts for other Fulldome shows. And a big part of that Fulldome shows have been astronomical animation and creating space. And 2 types of space actually, and that's a little bit the point what I'm talking about. There are 2 types of space. There's the scientific part, which a lot of our clients want to show the people. It's a part about stars and realism and scientific, really detailed scientific stuff. And there's the part of space which your audience wants to see because they've been to the cinema, they've seen Star Wars, Star Trek, all these beautiful clouds and nebula that don't really exist if you're coming from a scientific point. So, that's me. So, that's a big problem you have. So, the point I'm trying to get is we want to tell people not only a nice story, but we want to tell them something scientific. We want to show them how space would be if you could go there, if you could travel there. And to do that, I think we first have to understand how space is created in Hollywood movies and stuff. We have to look at what they do, how they do it, and how we can port those techniques to our Fulldome and scientific animations about space. So, before I really go into detail, here are some of the shows we did. The last big one was Building Suns, the project for the European Space Agency. And after that we did parts of a couple of shows for German Planetarium. So that's the first big test for me. If PowerPoint can play video, that would be very nice, so I can show you a little bit of the stuff we did. Hopefully. Could you turn down the lights a little bit, please? Is it possible here? So at least see solved 3 or 4, I think. Will not be the easiest presentation for me because the beamer actually shows you nothing. So this will not be that easy. So let me try and find something here. This is going to be a bit difficult, I think. So actually what I really would have loved to show you, but I can't because you can't see it really good, is how those images are created layer from layer, because that's basically how we work. We build a camera path and then we build a setup of different 3D scenes and composite all the different layers of those images together. So we start in the background, we start basically with a star background, and then we add layer after layer after layer of content to produce the full frame. But the problem here is, this is actually what's happening in this video. So you see always when there's a line appearing, there's something changing, but actually it's a little bit dark. So I don't know, I think if there are coming more layers into it, you can see a little bit more. So we approach from the background to the foreground normally, because it's just the easiest way to composite the image. So you don't have to deal about occlusion of objects and stuff. You can work from the background to the foreground, but still the camera is moving. So at some points you have to consider using map objects. You can leave it here when there's what I'm trying to do. And you see that actually here when there's so here when after the star and the nebula comes in, there's one of those tricky points, because you have now this nebula streams from the star that occlude part of the image that are in the foreground. So you have to deal with that. It's one of the compositing tricks we have to do. And of course, in the end, when the whole image is completed, we have to adjust the colors. It's especially important if you're working for a dome environment, because if you're working in the dome, then you have to tweak the colors a lot, that the image still looks good on the dome, because you have a lot of cross reflections. So this little scene I've just shown you was created actually for the anniversary of our planetarium in Kiel. And it was actually a tryout piece for me, especially because I tried out a lot of different techniques and layered a lot of stuff together. And as maybe some of you have noticed, this is absolutely not scientifically correct. There's nothing correct in this pictures whatsoever. But those projects are very nice because you can try out very extreme stuff. And what we realized is, in a lot of situations where you have extreme stuff, and most of the times the space shown in movies is very extreme, the parts of it are mostly scientifically correct. So if they show nebula, they exist, this works. But they are too bright, too big, too overblown, they fill out the whole sky. So we found out that there is a very good way of taking their techniques, their tools, their pipelining, and just adjust the stuff that they were doing to our needs. So I hope you can at least a little bit see the Milky Way. It's one of our latest sequences, and that's basically uses a lot of the same techniques as you have seen in the video before, but we just adjusted them to the ways a scientist likes them to see in the dome. But still, and that's a bit of the tricky part of all that, you still need to produce an interesting, eye-pleasing image. So you don't have, you can't dull it down a lot. You can't take out all the bright objects. You can't make space. I mean, maybe you've seen the example of flying through the stars. So that's actually space. It's black and there are white dots flying around you. That's, I mean, it's a nice effect, don't get me wrong, but if you are trying to convince people about how interesting space is and how beautiful space is, this doesn't work. So you have to walk a very thin line between being scientifically accurate and still being eye-pleasing. So now I have a little demo for you. This won't. Let's try if this works. I actually have the scene of the Milky Way here. I hope I can open it and show you a little bit how it's composited. Yeah, live demos and stuff. So, what you can see here is the compositing application that our company mainly uses. It's called Fusion. What you can see down here is a so-called node graph, and actually the green dots all represent footage and layers that comes out of the 3D application. Those could be very different kinds of stuff like nebula, like stars, like solid objects, and the frames rendered out from the 3D application. Load one up. So there you can see parts of the volumetric stuff. So we try to use a lot of different techniques for creating the Milky Way. Part of it was volumetric rendering, so you can see here some volumetric parts we added. And we woke up the compositing tree. Let me shrink this down a little bit. So you can see that we slowly bringing in a lot of the different layers, and this sometimes looks a little bit funny in the steps between. That's just because color grading hasn't applied yet. So, as you can see, we slowly apply some color grading, and at this point, I think we apply the small stars, which have been a real pain for us, because producing 1 pixel bright white dots in 4K was very hard to render. because you had a lot of flickering to deal with, a lot of artifacts, and it's actually really, really difficult for a lot of video codecs too. The astrophysicist we did this for, Dr. Björn Voss, was very eager to have the Milky Way made out of really billions of stars. So he didn't want us to make it a lot of volumetrics, a lot of, like just flat surfaces or something. He wanted us that you can see a Milky Way made out of stars, and it's a little bit difficult to see, but actually all the small dots here, they are all little tiny stars. We actually, I think in the end we rendered around 5 billion stars for the Milky Way to make it look good in the dome. And we had to deal with a lot of anti-aliasing stuff and a lot of overbright pixels at the end. Yes. So we are slowly approaching the part where my notebook will not be able to process this compositing anymore. This was actually done on my workstation at home, and I was really amazed that it runs on my laptop. So let me zoom out a little bit. So you can see we already added a lot of different layers. So I show you the volumetric stuff in the background. It just gives you a slight glow. You maybe again those little red dots, little red nebulas we put into it. Very important part was adding the dark clouds that are shown around the centers. And when you work with a lot of small objects, you realize that you need to add some highlight objects into it, just that your brain can process the details in this compositing. You have to change the way, you have to put some highlight stars into it that it doesn't appear like one bright shining disk. So let me try if we can produce the final image sequence. Yeah, this maybe takes a little too long for the notebook. At this part, most things that are added now are actually color gradings and glows and stuff. So yeah, there are some star clusters added to the composite because you could actually see star clusters from outside the Milky Way. So there's another highlight added, another little detail added to the compositing, and that's basically the way we always work. We define the camera path at the beginning of the project with a very basic geometry, like just with image planes or something. And we always try to fix our clients on realizing that those camera paths are final, they approve. So because a lot of the compositing stuff is worthless if you change the camera path at the end of a project, and believe me, we do this quite often. We change camera path quite too often at the end of projects actually. The nice part of this, or the nice thing when working this way, is a lot of client wishes you can just do in the composite. You don't have to render new frames, you don't have to build new 3D scenes. Most things you can either add via little adjustment, like for example, those star clusters, so brighter dots, were a wish of the client near the end of the project, so we could just add them because we had the scene ready and we just need to render those little dots and put them into our composite. I think the last thing that it's trying to process there is there's a glow added and the star cluster added to the center of the Milky Way, but yeah, I don't know. I think your coffee break is more important than this program trying to establish the full image. So I hope you've maybe learned something. I tried not to go too much into the details, not too much into 3D. If you have special questions about 3ds Max, about Fusion, about compositing, yeah, maybe, yeah, trying to finish this today.
Oh, out of battery.
Then just come and talk to me. Thank you.